Ben from Canada recently made a video that exposed a conspiracy deep within the Phantom Menace. Symmetry, symbionts. What does it mean? Well, I've discovered something. Something that proves that this conspiracy goes all the way to the top. Number 1. Worms. Number 2. Squid. Number 3. Clones. Clones to have 2 of something, a duplicate. Symmetry. Number 4. 2 Padmes. 2. Multiple as in symmetrical Padmes. Number 4. Visual symmetry in general. Number 7, 2 buns. Number 8, 2 bowls. Number 9, twins. Sons and daughters, actual sons, always 2 there are. Number 10, fire. One that baptizes the fall of Vader and the other that marks his rise from the ashes. Number 11, you underestimate my power. Number 12, no. Number 13, now this is my smoking gun. Lightsabers, limbs, and Obi-Wan Kenobi. So Ben from Canada, they already showed the double lightsaber thing, get lightsaber, lose lightsaber, get double lightsaber, then tap into the dark side, oopsies, and then get bisected by a broguish, bounding bisexual. Episode 2, meet an elderly man, fight, get a limb chopped off, lose your lightsaber, oh, Obi-Wan's gonna kill me. That is correct. Episode 3, get 2 lightsaber, give in to the dark side a little, do a duel, but then, sad. Other person gains the upper hand, the high ground, if you will, get more limbs chopped off, and then a part of you dies. Everything is symmetrical, everything is mirrored, except for Obi-Wan, who killed the human parts of Anakin, where Luke resurrected them. So, what does it mean? I mean, I can't just because George Lucas was a visual storyteller. He doesn't really like writing. He just likes visual symmetry, so he put it into his narrative too. Or maybe it's because George Lucas just wanted to tell old myths in new ways, and Claude Levi-Strauss said that resolving narrative binaries is inherent to mythical structure because the purpose of myth is to provide a logical model capable of overcoming contradiction. So like good evil, cat dog, Bill Gates, human compassion. Alternatively, the symmetry is just a consequence of George Lucas's passion for Buddhism and its tenets of balance and equanimity. Or I guess, I don't know, maybe he's just, a crazy guy doing some fun stuff with lines. Or alternatively, tragedies, oh no, how do you spell tragedy? Tragedies, close enough, are symmetrical. Tragedies are symmetrical. Tragedies follow symmetrical structures. Revenge tragedies especially so. Aristotle did a lot of talking in Poetics about the tragic flaw, or hamartia. So basically it's the flaw or mistakes that ends up being pretty important to the story, because you started pretty virtuous, but because of that tragic flaw, you suffer a reversal of fortune. So Gilgamesh is a pretty cool dude, but he's kind of afraid of dying, and he ends up losing the love of his life in Kidu. And Oedipus, well, he had that situation with his mom and his father, and he was blind to it, so at the end of the story, he does the eye hokey pokey. Anakin's tragic flaw is fear. The middle bit convinces us that maybe he can be the hero without fear, but hot dog, his fear is still the path to the dark side. He does the whole Oedipus thing with the prophecy he fulfills himself, and he also has that Hamlet burn down the world with me-itis, especially when he tries to do the revenge on Obi-Wan for turning against me. Basically, a tragedy means you set up a flaw, introduce hope somewhere in the middle, and make the ending a reflection or a consequence of the beginning. Well, I'm glad I figured that out. But are the prequels a revenge tragedy? Well, episode 3 is literally called Revenge of the Sith, and the 6th film was originally going to be called Revenge of the Jedi. Oh my god, symmetrical titles. But it's not actually called that now, is it? It's Return of the Jedi. When Luke threw down his lightsaber, he didn't take his revenge, he redeemed his father. But when Obi-Wan didn't do the stabbing, he condemned the entire universe. He facilitated a space genocide. Did he? Oh my god, did he? Why the heck did Obi-Wan just let Anakin die? The answer to this question will expose the very heart of this conspiracy. Theory number 1 is that he had a duty as a Jedi and had to keep his promise to his master to believe that Anakin was still the chosen one. Obi-Wan is the best Jedi. Obi-Wan being the best Jedi means he's not in the best position to nurture a very traumatized Anakin Skywalker who, above all else, wants to love as fully as he can and be loved in return. More so than Obi-Wan, Anakin is, quote, loyal to people, not to principles. This is why a lot of fix-it fanfiction involves Obi-Wan and Anakin just kind of sitting down and having a singular, honest conversation. It goes something like this. Salut, je t'aime. Salut, je t'aime aussi. Je sais que votre femme est enceinte. C'est cool. Eh, merci. Au fait, je pense que Palpatine est un Sith. Bien, merci. Je vais le tuer rapidement. Mais d'abord, un câlin. Très bien, un câlin, patate. Oh, très bien, l'amour, l'amour. But they never really get there because Anakin's flawed relationship with possessive love and fear is antithetical to Obi-Wan's own traumas and philosophy. More often than not, Obi-Wan chooses the Jedi and fails to truly articulate how much he actually does love Anakin. Like in the Reiko Hardin arc in the Clone Wars, where Obi-Wan fakes his death to pose as a bounty hunter, he forces Anakin to live his deepest fear of losing the person he loves most, and forces the insecurity that Obi-Wan doesn't actually trust Anakin, and this ultimately pushes Anakin even closer to the Emperor, making him much easier to manipulate. Anakin needed a father who loved him, and he got a brother and the perfect Jedi instead. If this was a normal story, then this would be the most noble and just choice. He committed himself to the Jedi, so he had to respect the prophecy. Why would he be punished in the eternal worm desert? Well, I guess it would be a just choice, except for the fact that the Jedi were wrong. I don't think this is a hot take anymore, but sometimes I see people critique the prequels because Obi-Wan said, only a Sith deal in absolutes, and that's a hypocritical statement. It's like that's the whole point. Star Wars has always been critical of the dominant power structure in the galaxy. The original trilogy critiqued America for being an imperialist nation and compared them to the Empire. And the prequels were critical of neoliberalism, the Bush administration, and all the war crimes. For example, Newt Gunray, Ronald Reagan, conspiracy, yes, but is it true? Also, yes. And ultimately, Lucas makes it very clear that fascism is capitalism in decline. The Jedi very clearly were wrong, and they helped facilitate this change from democracy to fascism. To demonstrate, I will give you a thorough, brief examination of a tangentially related topic I know a bizarre amount of information about. The Staatssicherheit, the Stasi, was East Germany's, or the GDR's, the German Democratic Republic's, secret police force. In 1950, the SED, the Socialist Unity Party, undemocratically formed the Stasi to survey Nazi and West German agents. As the regime evolved, the Stasi became an apparatus of domestic surveillance that instilled fear and paranoia among East German citizens. They created a network of unofficial informants of family members, friends, and neighbors that were all potentially spying on each other. By 1989, they had 90,000 to 100,000 full-time employees and 500,000 to 2 million unofficial collaborators. They had collected surveillance on 6 million East Germans. Do you know what else happened in 1989? Oh yeah, the Berlin Wall fell. The Stasi were powerful, and they likely could have stopped the revolution. In fact, East Germans largely expected they would. From 1989 to 1981, there were a series of Monday demonstrations in which citizens peacefully protested, even after the Tiananmen Square massacre in June of 1989. Egon Krenz endorsed the solution, and Erich Mielke, the Stasi chief, announced that a Chinese solution was possible to, quote, nip hostile activities in the bud and prevent a mass basis from forming. The saying, Beijing is now in Berlin, was thus popular among protesters. And somehow, the wall still fell. The peaceful revolution unfolded without a single shot being fired. And this is a result of a lot of different factors and reasons. One of the common arguments is that the SED largely relied on sticks rather than carrots for social control. Coercion and the panoptic effect of the Stasi eliminated public expression of dissent, but did not eliminate the private, genuine feelings of dissent. As the East Germans put it, they were only living on 2 tracks. As a result, disruptive or possibly revolutionary ideas were just harder to detect and survey. The Jedi were similarly disconnected from the unhappiness of the people they were supposed to protect. Another argument is that the Stasi actually did collect a lot of information of the possible brewing crisis for the GDR, but there was a bit of a disconnect between the Stasi and party leaders. Leaders did not react to Stasi reports in time, and in response to the indistinct and lacking leadership, a cycle of increasingly disillusioned and unmotivated Stasi agents began. EXE in Star Wars, all Jedi turning to Sith, or just failing to contribute meaningfully to the cause of the Jedi. In addition, the Stasi and the GDR and the Jedi were extremely overconfident in their own supremacy. They fully expected East Germany to survive long after the Soviet Union. For example, the Stasi in Perleberg announced, "In our district, the state is secure." A month later, the Berlin Wall fell. Dave Filoni similarly describes the greatest flaw of the Jedi and the Old Republic to be hubris. And though it kind of feels like a convenient excuse, the reason why the Separatists and the Sith keep failing is because the Emperor wanted to make the Jedi feel overconfident and thus complacent and actually incompetent. And that is why you fail. Something that is unique to the Jedi is that their most tragic flaw is their dependence on enforcing symmetry.
He ceased to be Anakin Skywalker and became Darth Vader. When that happened, the good man who was your father was destroyed.
The Jedi code of the prequel era was, there is no emotion, there is peace, there is no ignorance, there is knowledge, there is no passion, there is serenity, there is no chaos, there is harmony, there is no death, there is the Force. I'm getting a strong whiff of, oh, what's that, an absolute? That the greatest tenet of the Jedi should be balance and equanimity, and finding a center between emotion and peace, ignorance and knowledge, and not the complete destruction of the dialectical relationship between the two? Weird. So, since Jedi Order bad, Obi-Wan loyalty to Jedi bad, thus ending is bad. Symmetry, tragedy, bada bing, bada boom. Well, I guess you could also argue that Obi-Wan just loved Anakin despite him being a crispy little Lutz potato chip. Go on this journey with me. When Obi-Wan killed Darth Maul, it was out of love for his master and hate for the lad who killed him. In the Clone Wars, he's also punished for forming attachments when his love Satine dies in his arms. Do you get it? Like in Moulin Rouge? Because Ewan McGregor was, yeah, great, okay. So, as you do when you try to recover from trauma, you overcompensate.
And I slaughtered them like animals.
Obi-Wan avoids attachments and rarely expresses or communicates his genuine emotions. And bada boom bada bing, Obi-Wan becomes the ultimate Jedi. So if the final movie is him choosing love, when he always prioritized his duties as a Jedi, that would be a pretty significant character progression. Anakin was everything Obi-Wan had devoted his life to destroying. Murderer, traitor, fallen Jedi, Lord of the Sith. And here, now despite it all, Obi-Wan still loved him. And if that is the reason he spared him, Anakin's art is asymmetric, and thus, my theory would die. Oh, wait, but what's this here? Oh. A third option. Get ready for my tepid, warm, less interesting take. The Force is God.
The prophecy is true.
George Lucas said it himself when he said, I put the Force into my movies in order to awaken a certain kind of spirituality in young people. More belief in God than in a particular, religious system. That's why the Star Wars version of oh my God or oh God is just oh Force. Okay, and now for my hot take. Obi-Wan is not Space Jesus. He's Space Abraham. Abraham is a prominent figure in Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. One of his most popular stories involves God asking him to sacrifice his son to prove his dedication. And Abraham was fully ready to do this before God was like, psych, we're cool, go along, little man. And Soren Kierkegaard saw the story and he was like, nice. Because he was an existentialist who thought that we could resolve the tension of living in a meaningless world with religion. He saw Abraham as a tragic hero who proved it was possible because, TBH, sacrificing your son for God is kind of absurd. But by virtue of the absurd, Abraham climbed the mountain, even at the instant when the knife glittered. He believed that God would not require Isaac. Rationally, Abraham is a murderer whose actions cannot be ethically or intellectually justified. It's absurd. It doesn't really make sense that the father of faith would be a father willing to kill his son. But he could resolve the tension between his passion and his faith by surrendering to the absurd. To be one with the Force, or God, you have to take a leap of faith. Obi-Wan killed Anakin out of both love and faith because he believed that the Force would not require Anakin's death by his hand. So you remember when I said that the structure of a tragedy is to set up a flaw?
I'm not leaving without you, Master.
Introduce hope somewhere in the middle.
Obi-Wan, may the Force be with you. Goodbye, old friend.
And make the ending a reflection or a consequence of the beginning.
I loved you!
I suppose if Obi-Wan is Space Abraham, he is simply that hope somewhere in the middle. But then again, maybe that's all garbage. Maybe Obi-Wan literally just thought he killed Anakin because, he had no arms, his legs, and he was literally on fire. So, I guess it also could have just been a selfish thing because in every exchange, Obi-Wan gave ground. It was his way, and he knew that to strike Anakin down would burn his own heart to ash. He couldn't even kill him in A New Hope either. He just tapped him with a stick and then he turned to laundry. And George Lucas is really always going by vibes. I know he says he plans things out, but I think he doesn't. I feel like that's a lie. And then Obi-Wan isn't even supposed to die in A New Hope, and that's why Yoda and him do the same thing in two different movies. And Luke was supposed to turn to the dark side. That would have been tragic. So how can something be tragic and non-tragic at the same time just because you take a leap of faith? It just it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. No. Ghost Obi-Wan?
What's wrong with your skin? You wrote it into the script because you assumed you could not do it. Or the accent. But that doesn't matter. Close your eyes, Padawan. Feel the Force around you. Reach out with your feelings. Dink Ferric.
Okay, Joseph Campbell. He was a professor of literature with a specific focus on mythology and comparative religion. His claim to fame was his show The Power of Myth with Bill Moyers and his book The Hero with 1,000 Faces, in which he proposed there was an omnipresent monomyth in every religion and myth. Also incorporated a whole bunch of psychology like Jung's archetypes and Freud's family drama. You remember Oedipus? Though his ideas shaped much of current storytelling, we are also reconsidering his theories to just be a dubious pseudoscience. It's kind of like if the function of a myth is to find similarity in binaries, and you wrote a book finding similarity in binaries, you'd create your own fiction. He also distorts stories and religions that are central to cultures from around the world to align with and justify his own Western, white, Christian perspective. But because his theories became so famous and the blueprint for the Star Wars trilogy, the monomyth and the hero's journey started to perpetuate itself everywhere. A self-fulfilling prophecy. Like Oedipus? In 1989, journalist Brendan Gills also reported that Campbell was anti-Semitic, sexist, and racist. So that's all to say that our boy Joey here mentored George Lucas, and Star Wars is probably the best example of the monomyth and the hero's journey that we've ever had. He specifically brought to life Joseph Campbell's words that the mask of God represents the middle, and the two represent the two opposites, and they always come in pairs. And put your mind in the middle. Most of us put our minds on the side of good against what we think of as evil. It was Heraclitus, I think, who said, "For God all things are good and right and just, but for man some things are right and others are not." You're in the field of time when you're man, and one of the problems of life is to live in the realization of both terms. That is to say, I know the center, and I know that good and evil are simply temporal apparitions. So basically, our heroes and gods don't restrict themselves to the light or the dark side. They see symmetry and find themselves in the middle. And this is why the prequels are so reliant on symmetry, because the universe and themselves were just so out of whack and so reliant on maintaining those boundaries. So the only reason why Luke succeeded where Obi-Wan failed is because he successfully put on the mask of God. He put on his little black Prada boots and abandoned his lightsaber, the weapon of the Jedi Knight. Luke lets go of the binaries that killed the Jedi Order and breaks the symmetry that destroyed his family and the universe. He detaches without abandoning love entirely. Unlike Obi-Wan, who detached Anakin from Darth Vader, Luke embraced and loved both sides of his father, the dark and the light, simultaneously.
I'm not gonna say that Luke is a great Jedi, but Luke is a great Jedi.
Ultimately, the only tragedy in Star Wars is Obi-Wan Kenobi's, where Luke and Anakin successfully made myth. Obi-Wan abandoned myth entirely. He died after an eternity of hell, babysitting, and became Joe Campbell's idea of the saint hero archetype. They have stepped away from the realm of forms. Once the hidden profile has been discovered, myth is the penultimate. Silence the ultimate word. The moment the spirit passes to the hidden, silence alone remains. Obi-Wan was redeemed when he died. He saved Anakin, loved him, while still remaining true to his faith. And yet he still got that Hamlet ending where the rest is silence. But if Star Wars has taught me anything, it is that the symmetry in our world and in our stories is maybe the only proof we have that we are not alone. And it would be dangerously ignorant to say that finding what makes us the same and loving what is different is going to solve systemic racism or poverty or the climate crisis. But I think it's important to know that there is a beautiful story out there that loves us, that surrounds us and binds us.
Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. You must feel the force around you. Here, between you, me, the tree, the rock, everywhere. Yes, even between the land and the ship.
Hi everyone, thanks for watching. I hope that it was kind of helpful. I had a lot of fun making it, and I think you can tell I was kind of really excited. So big thanks to Ben from Canada for making that really fun video. I've been watching Mr. Sunday movies for since I was 12, so it's kind of crazy to come full circle like this. I just wanted to give a quick little hello here just because I wanted to clarify that I'm not suggesting that we should all go and find a religion. I myself am not religious. I just thought it was cool that to have that little connecting bit with what Yoda said, because I thought it was clever, but not to say that we should all, do stuff that is not what we want to do. In addition, I also talk about Kierkegaard and the Abraham stuff, and I just saw a post on Tumblr discussing that it's often a thing that people talk about to excuse their behavior to mistreating their children, especially LGBTQA plus children. So I just want to say that I don't appreciate that. I think that's really bad. I'm not religious, so I wasn't familiar with this, and I probably should have done a bit more research into just how it affects the culture, but because I wasn't raised in it, I didn't know. So many apologies if that was misrepresentative. I just kind of thought it would be interesting to give Obi-Wan a possibility where his ending was just kind of inside the dialectics of faith and love. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. My next video I think is going to be on Jurassic Park 3 by Joe Johnston, and because I actually like that movie, and then after that maybe Taika Waititi. So I'm trying to post every 2 weeks on a Wednesday, but we'll see how that goes. Another thing that I found out while I was recording this is that Anakin hadn't slept in a few years, which is weird because how would anyone turn to the dark side just because they hadn't